My name is Mary Norman. I've been married for 4 years and have a 3-year-old child. My husband is kind, and every year on our wedding anniversary and my birthday, he arranges for our child to stay with my parents so we can celebrate together. No matter how busy he is, he always insists on properly celebrating these special days. He has always valued me as his wife. My husband works as a freelance writer. He seems to get work from various publishers, but whether that's the whole truth, I'm not sure, haha. Since I also work, we keep our finances separate and share household expenses. Ideally, I should probably be giving my husband an allowance from his earnings, but due to the nature of his work, he said it would be difficult to work with a fixed allowance. And so, another birthday of mine rolled around. I was sure my husband had prepared a surprise and was waiting for me. With that thought, I returned home. Usually, my little daughter would come running to greet me, but she wasn't there today. She must be at my parents' house for today's surprise. Looking back, I can't believe how naive I was. But at that time, I trusted and loved my husband, so I never doubted him. "Hello, I'm home." As I entered and started to take off my shoes, I noticed something. Huh? Women's shoes, I guessed, maybe? They were high heels, which I would never wear. And they were quite large. There are women with feet this size, huh? She may be a tall woman like a bear. Thinking this, I went further inside. And there, I found my husband with a young woman. She was very beautiful. This must be the guest. Though she seems petite for those shoes. "Welcome home," my husband said with a grin, his hand on her shoulder. "What? What's this?" "Today's your birthday, right?" "Yes, it is, but who is this lady? A guest?" "No, my mistress." "What?" "And here, a present. A divorce paper." "What?" "I'm gonna be with her now. This birthday is the biggest surprise ever, right?" "Wait, this is beyond a surprise. Why? Who is she?" "So, she's my mistress." "So, you've been cheating?" "Yeah, that's right." "Oh, okay." My mind went blank, unable to comprehend what was happening. I had never suspected my husband of cheating. And here he was, introducing this beautiful woman as his mistress. Could this just be a shocking way of surprising me? "She's a freelance writer, just like me," my husband said with a smile, introducing her. But why was he introducing his mistress with such a smile? It's definitely not normal. Next to him, the woman was smiling happily. I stared at her while listening to my husband's story. "Have we met somewhere before?" I asked, interrupting him. Annoyed at being interrupted, he explained that she was a famous writer. It's strange if you don't know such a famous writer. But the thing is, I work at a publishing house. Therefore, I meet even unknown writers like my husband and usually recognize them, even if only faintly. And I tend to remember most writers, thinking they might come in handy someday. But, "Excuse me, your name is?" "Andrew Kirby," she said with a deep, hoarse voice, as if she had a cold. "The image is completely different." "Sure, such people exist, but..." "Andrew Kirby." I desperately searched my memory for this writer. However, I couldn't find any Andrew Kirby. Strange. If she's such a famous person, I should know her. My husband pouted, unsatisfied. "Not everything you know is everything there is. Besides, if you don't know such a famous writer, aren't you failing as an editor?" But I had never heard of her. Even if she was a newcomer, I should have at least heard her name. As I scrutinized her with an editor's eye, my husband, unconcerned, started talking about divorce. "So, I'm sorry, but I love Andrew, so please, let's get a divorce." "When did this start?" "Well, about 6 months ago, I guess. We met online." "A dating app?" "Yeah, that's it." So, he was womanizing from the start. I was completely oblivious. A good husband, a kind husband, a perfect husband. That's what I had convinced myself of. Due to his freelance job, there were times he didn't come home or stayed out, and I had no choice but to accept that. But it turns out he was taking advantage of that trust. My husband, who had brilliantly betrayed my trust. He kept going on about her beauty, her youth, her femininity, and the depth of her love. All to me, his wife. I felt no anger. I was surprised at how emotionless I was. I was just staring blankly at her. And then it hit me. I've seen her before. Where had I seen her? When did we meet? The moment I thought I recognized her, my mind started racing, pulling her from my memories. That's right, I've seen her a few times at the publishing house. I never had a reason to ask for her name, so I ignored her, but I've definitely met her. A smile involuntarily spread across my face. What's so funny? Nothing. You're really weird. If you're thinking something strange, just stop it. Something strange? Yeah, like taking out some weird grudge on Andrew. Jealousy? Exactly. No matter how you look at it, Andrew's more beautiful. She's more feminine. You don't stand a chance against her in jealousy. He's really got nerve saying that. He'll regret this soon enough. So, please, let's get a divorce. He pleaded desperately. I just kept staring at her. Come on, you'll agree to the divorce, right? My love is not with you anymore. Please. I thought to myself, so that's how it is, and casually replied, sure. What? What do you mean by sure? You want a divorce, right? Fine by me. Really? His face lit up with joy. If you're that eager to divorce, why not? I have no intention of chasing after someone who says they don't love me anymore. Really? You mean it? Yes, I'm fine with it. Because that woman is. As I picked up a pen and started signing the divorce papers, I said, I'd rather see you happy. Of course, that was a big lie. After what he did, he deserved to fall into hell. That's what I truly thought. But, even though we're splitting, I'm gonna ask for alimony and child support. You're the one who cheated, after all. Sure, I'll pay anything to be with Andrew. That's great. And I'm taking the kids. So, I'll take the house too. It'd be sad to make the kids live in a small place. Sure, fine by me. All I need is Andrew. What a fool. Abandoning his family for Andrew. He was a truly fool. I put down the pen and handed the divorce papers to my now ex-husband Ken. No matter how tough it gets, be happy. Thanks. He replied, grabbed her hand, and left the house. Watching them leave, I smiled, no matter how tough, even if you fall into hell, be happy. If you can. And whispered to myself. A month later. Ken contacted me. He desperately wanted to talk. Curious to see his face, I gladly agreed and went to the arranged place. There, haggard Ken awaited me. Wow, he lasted longer than I expected. I thought he'd contact me sooner. Sitting down, I sipped the coffee the waiter brought. Let's see what he's got to say. I looked at Ken. He started with how things had gone terribly wrong and then mentioned he got married. Oh, congratulations. That's great. But it's not good. Why not? Well, it's about Andrew. Andrew? Yeah, Andrew, he turned out to be a man. I didn't show any surprise, just took another sip of my coffee. Why aren't you shocked? Did you know? Yes. How did you know? He works for the cleaning company at the publishing house, right? He, or should I say she? Ha! What? Cleaning company? I didn't hear about that. I only saw him a few times, never thought he was the same person. You see, when he's cleaning, he dresses like a man. Sure, he has long hair, but I just thought he was one of those guys who ties it back. And he didn't wear makeup at work, so I thought he was just a good-looking guy. It took me a while to realize he was the same person when we met for the divorce. But I had no idea you were into that kind of thing, so I was pretty surprised inside. This was a lie. Ken couldn't possibly be into men. We've been together for so long, and there was never a hint of it. Maybe he's bi? That's the most I thought about it. The best thing to do was to let him be happy in his own way. You should have told me. Didn't you think it was odd? That someone not an actress could be so beautiful? Even if born beautiful, one needs a strong desire to be a woman to become that pretty. And that femininity, it's not so common in women naturally, especially nowadays. Well, maybe, but... Basically, you knew what men like, right? Maybe, but... Good for you. She was your ideal, right? Just like you wanted. No, it's not like that. Besides, you were too head over heels to listen. Even if I told you he might be a man, you wouldn't have understood. Probably would have blamed me, saying no way he's a man. Maybe you're right. Even if I hadn't said anything, you would have accused me of being jealous. If I had brought up the man theory, you would have definitely said I was just jealous. I didn't want to be accused of that when I was just looking out for you. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, that's right. Ken said, still clueless about my real thoughts. I knew eventually he would realize she was a man and panic. I would find joy in seeing Ken's reaction. I was sure, and that's exactly what happened. Why didn't you realize it earlier? You should have noticed when you were dating. Well, his voice did concern me. I once commented on how deep it was, and he cried, saying he hated it because a doctor told him his vocal cords were thick. Oh, fake tears, huh? But you would have known once naked. Or did she already have surgery? No, she said she didn't want to do that until we were married. I thought she was so modest. Nice excuse. And Ken fell for it. But didn't you realize before submitting the marriage certificate? There's no field for gender on the marriage certificate. Just husband and wife. Oh, really? And they accepted it? Yeah, they did. Nowadays, many places accept same-sex marriages. Lucky for you it got accepted. I wish it hadn't. But you were so eager to get married. I didn't want to marry a man. You shouldn't say that. You said you loved him so much. Does your love depend on gender? It's not about that, but, you know, the softness when you hug is different. There are muscular women and chubby men. It's all about perspective. And you're already married, so it's too late now. No, I'm thinking of divorcing. Oh, how cruel you are, as usual. Doesn't matter if it's a man or woman. If your hearts are connected, that's all that matters. You are physically connected, aren't you? Well, yeah. Then there's no problem. You're the man in the relationship anyway, right? Yeah. So, nothing's changed. It's not about that. It's about what he's got extra. Well, consider it a bonus. I had imagined this scenario. After all, he was the kind of guy who would bring his lover home and ask for a divorce, a real piece of work. I knew he would react this way once he found out Andrew was a man. But now, asking for a divorce? How much more can he disrespect people? He needs to consider the feelings of the person he married on a whim. You're married now, you should just accept it. Getting a divorce right after marrying is just the worst. Maybe you can transcend the fact that she's a man. I suggested, trying to calm him down. But honestly, I didn't want them to split up or be happy. After all, Ken's descent into hell had just begun. If I don't enjoy everything first, there's no point in having broken up. All the more fun to come. You think so? Of course. No need to rush. Marriage is a long-term thing. I advised him as we parted ways. But the next bombshell came sooner than expected. 2 months later, Ken contacted me again. This time with excitement in his voice. Listen, Andrew has debts. Oh? Why aren't you surprised? Why should I be surprised? That's more surprising. Well, yeah, but still. So? What's the deal with the debt? I asked about it. He said it was for his parents' medical bills and hospital expenses. Well, that sounds like a dutiful thing to do. Yeah, that's true, but... I wonder if it's really for his parents. Ken, seeing my smile, asked if I knew something. Why would you think that? You're smiling about such a situation. It's odd. You wouldn't look like that unless you knew something. I can't interfere in a couple's matters. I'm just an outsider. Something feels off. Exes can be perceptive. He sensed something. If you're that worried, why don't you call Andrew and ask again? Maybe I will. Can I call to ask him now? Go ahead. I doubted he would easily reveal anything over the phone. Sure enough, when Ken asked Andrew about the debts, Andrew casually replied, "It's for my parents' medical expenses, remember? I told you before. Did you forget?" So it's really for his parents' medical bills. Right. But I'm pretty sure those medical expenses aren't for his parents. Since she says so, it must be for her parents' hospital bills. What a dutiful wife you've got there. Maybe. Keep worrying, Ken. Though Ken seemed to be caught on something, he didn't pursue it further. However, the dark clouds continued to gather, and 3 months later, Ken showed up at my house with Andrew. We're divorced, so please don't come here without contacting me first. Come on, you must be bored, right? I'm not bored. I'm an editor and have important work to do, like taking a break. I get it, but just hear me out. He really doesn't get it, does he? Fine, come in. I said, reluctantly letting them in. As soon as they were inside, Ken started. You said Andrew was a freelance writer, but do you really know him? Of course, I know your lover and current spouse. If that's your question, you could have just called. No, I mean, is he really a freelance writer? Like I said before, he's a janitor. I don't get this janitor thing. Andrew looked shocked when he heard the word janitor. It's no surprise, considering he had been hiding his true identity and working as a man. Clearly, Andrew wanted to be a writer who could work from home. I have no intention of meddling. I've been deceived. What? With Ken's outburst, Andrew looked utterly dejected. And I couldn't help but feel sorry for him, for falling for such a man. And for my past self as well. I was told he's a successful writer. Well, I don't think it was a lie. I hadn't heard his name either and doubted it at first. But after checking, it's true he's a writer, just not a famous one. What do you mean? He's not publishing books or writing magazine columns, but he's been posting about your lovely daily life on social media. Really? He has followers, so why not call himself a writer? But that doesn't make money. Well, it's true that it doesn't make money. He has debts. And it turns out, it's not for his parents' medical expenses, but for his own breast augmentation surgery. Ah, so that's what it was all about. The reason I knew so much about Andrew is thanks to my connections. Anything that piques my interest, I thoroughly research and provide insights to my authors. That's why I'm good at investigating. So when Ken brought Andrew over, claiming he was a lover, and I thought, I've seen him before, could he be a man? I delved deep into research. How adorable, wanting to enlarge your breasts through surgery. It's just a woman's heart, right? Isn't she exactly the type of woman you wanted, Ken? Lucky you. A woman wouldn't need breast augmentation surgery. Oh, some women do go for it. Well, yeah, but at least do the bottom surgery too. Maybe she didn't have enough money for that, right, Andrew? Yes, that's right. The surgery is really expensive. I ran out of money just with the breast augmentation. And you lied about it being for your parents' medical expenses, planning to keep lying if I hadn't confronted you. I'm sorry. Oh, come on. You said you loved him so much, so what's the big deal? Forgive him already. You're such a small man. I have to pay off his stupid debts? Stupid. Yes, stupid, right? That's harsh, calling it stupid. Look, you're acting all high and mighty, but why can't Andrew just pay off his own debts? He's working too, right? If he pays them, there'll be nothing left for living expenses. In the end, I'll have to support him. She's your wife, isn't it natural? You two should work together. Besides, Andrew works as a janitor. He might be earning more than you. I need money for drinks and food, and to go out once in a while. I don't want my money to go towards paying off those debts. That's not your money. What are you talking about? Well, yes, that's true. But that's not the point. The real issue is that Andrew is a man. I can't think of him as a wife. Still making the worst comments. I never intended to marry a man. Ken continued, ignoring Andrew's feelings. Andrew looked downcast, shrinking in on himself. You're just the worst. Why am I the worst? Don't you think you've done anything wrong? I haven't lied. I'm a man through and through. You're missing worst there. What? The worst man through and through. Didn't you tell Andrew you're a successful writer? That's what I heard. I have a column. I'm a successful writer. Oh, that column got cancelled because it wasn't interesting. Why? Because it's obvious, isn't it? No one's gonna pay for a writer whose articles drive readers away. There are writers out there much more interesting than you. That column existed because I spoke up for it. Now that we're divorced, it's only natural they cut it. I'm surprised it lasted this long. What do you mean? He said he had so many columns to write, and he was busy. Was all that a lie? All lies, big lies. Your husband isn't a hotshot writer at all. He only got to write those columns because of my influence, and even then, the feedback from readers was terrible. They found it utterly uninteresting. But he always acted so high and mighty. You're just as much of a liar. Where's this hotshot writer you claim to be? All lies, everywhere. Hold on. Right now, I think Andrew is the more successful writer. His articles are interesting and have a certain charm. They might not have made money before, but if he writes for us, we'll pay him properly, and he could even get his own column. There are plenty of magazines looking for good writers. I can introduce him to some. I believe he can write fascinating articles. Really? That's amazing. Wait a minute. How does this make sense? He's a man, you know? You're a man too, right? And what does being a man or a woman have to do with writing? But then, my job is... We can't use you at our magazine. What about the debts then? I can't expect to pay them. You're earning more now, so you should support me. Hey Andrew, when Ken and I were married, his income was minuscule. There were months he couldn't contribute to living expenses. I had to cover for him. Now that I think about it, he probably needed that money for his affairs. He was like that? That's the kind of person he is. You might have thought he had money because he was generous, but he was just a broke guy, scattering money around trying to catch a cash cow for his fun. All his talk of being wealthy was just a show. I thought he had money. So you set a trap for me thinking I had money? Too bad. You're no different, trying to snag Andrew thinking he was a successful writer. A successful writer would mean a decent income, plus he's young and attractive. All self-inflicted. But... No buts or protests. By the way, I'm going to claim alimony and child support. You said you'd pay, right? Why you say it now? It doesn't matter when I claim it. We're not divorced yet. And I want it all in one lump sum. I can't rely on your income to get my payments. How much is it? That's going to be $60,000 in alimony. I'd like to claim it from Andrew too, but since he took this jerk off my hands, I'll let Andrew off. And for child support, $1,000 a month until our child graduates college. You'll pay it all at once, so it'll be $228,000. Make sure you pay it, even if you have to borrow. That's impossible. There's nothing impossible about it. You can just borrow it, right? It's no big deal. Whether you deposit it to me every month or the place you borrow from makes the deductions, it's just the same in the end. That means more debts? Yes, that's what divorce means. I'm leaving. What are you saying? With that much debt, I can't pay it alone. We're a couple, we should pay it together. Are you kidding me? After all the insults about being a man, and now that you have debts, you want to pay together? I can't accept that. Wait, let's start over. Don't say that. I'll send the divorce papers later. Sign them and submit them to the office, Andrew said, making his exit. With that attitude, Andrew would probably pack his bags and leave before Ken even got back home. Betraying me was bound to have consequences. Serves him right. Hey, Mary, how about we start over? What? What are you talking about? We got along well, didn't we? So, let's start over. I realize I prefer a woman like you over a man. Plus, if we get back together, I wouldn't have to pay alimony and child support, right? You really are the lowest of the low, aren't you? Despite Ken's persistent pleas for a do-over, I remained firm in my refusal. He eventually left, cursing under his breath. Soon after, Ken and Andrew quickly finalized their divorce. The marriage had lasted only about 6 months, which was surprisingly brief. Andrew then made a writer debut at the publishing company where I work. His first piece on same-sex marriage was a short article, but it was a huge hit. With rave reviews from readers, he soon secured a regular column. He seemed to have a wealth of interesting topics and was on his way to becoming quite successful. I'm currently trying to ensure he continues writing for us. As for Ken, his articles were neither interesting nor engaging, and no publishing house wanted to use them. He ended up in a debt hell due to the alimony and child support debts. Despite pitching articles to various publishers, no one was interested or even willing to look at them. Realizing he couldn't make a living this way, he's recently been surviving on odd jobs. He's a writer in name only and seems to be looking for a woman to support him, but I doubt anyone would fall for that now. As for me, after splitting from Ken, I've found mental stability and am living peacefully with my child. Andrew and I occasionally meet for tea or meals. Having both been tormented by the same man, we've developed a bond and enjoy each other's company. Andrew's book is going to be published soon, and I'm thinking of gifting a copy to Ken. Just having her enter my field of vision is incredibly distressing. And she's infertile too. What's the point of her even being a woman? There's no need for her to be married, so she should just hurry up and leave. As a woman and as a wife, I find her embarrassing and don't want to be associated with her. My husband and I have decided to live happily with my mother-in-law in this house. She's an eyesore, so I want her out. Why do I have to be the one to leave when they were the ones who suggested living together? I wanted to complain, but since I had been thinking about leaving if I could, I decided to move out the very next day. 6 months later, to my surprise, my mother-in-law came to me in a furious rage, blaming me for everything. But in my arms was my newborn baby, and seeing this, my mother-in-law made an outrageous statement and took shocking action. As a result, her life began to take a downward turn. I'm in my late 30s and work as a freelance writer. I started this job as a part-time job in college. I had planned to get a regular job after graduation, but as I started getting more offers from different sources, I decided to make a career out of writing. A few years ago, I married a younger man who was a company employee. He's younger, but we're both in our 30s, so I don't really feel like I married a much younger man. I met my husband through work. Since getting married, my husband has been transferred to a new department and has been incredibly busy every day. I've wanted to support him, so I've scaled back my work a bit. Still, thanks to the work I've done before, our income hasn't suddenly decreased to the point where we're struggling to live. My mother-in-law doesn't understand my job at all. She thinks a job means working outside the house for someone else. Due to the nature of my work, I often carry my smartphone around for gathering information. Even at home, I like to have it with me to take notes whenever something comes up, but my mother-in-law thinks I'm just playing around. Playing games on your phone again, huh? Must be nice, having your husband earn while you indulge in games all day. She's even nagged me about how much I spend on games. There's also been interference in our household chores. Since it's just the two of us, we do laundry every other day, but she insists it should be done daily. She says it's unhygienic and dirty, though we're not wearing the same clothes for days on end. We're not even living with my mother-in-law, but she has reasons for meddling in our life. First, I'm older than my husband. Plus, being in my late 30s, there's not much time left for me to have children. Since my husband is the eldest son, it would be a disgrace to the family if he doesn't have an heir. And all this, according to my mother-in-law, is my fault. She seems to want to annoy and harass me, hoping to make me leave my husband as soon as possible. She was originally opposed to our marriage, and foreseeing this, my husband made it clear from the start that we would not live with his parents. A year after we got married, my father-in-law passed away. He was a healthy man who had never been seriously ill or injured, and he didn't even need to visit the doctor. It was heartbreaking to see how much my mother-in-law was affected by his death. The night before he died, my father-in-law had dinner and drinks as usual before going to bed. But the next morning, when he didn't get up even past noon, my mother-in-law went to wake him and found he wasn't breathing. The cause of death was a stroke, which seemed to have occurred while he was sleeping. After handling the funeral and other related matters, my husband took the lead in settling things down. Then, a discussion about the future took place at my mother-in-law's house. Considering her severe grief, it was suggested that someone should live with her. Naturally, as the eldest son, my husband seemed the most appropriate choice for this. However, my husband knew about the discord between me and my mother-in-law, and that she still hadn't accepted our marriage. He firmly declined the idea of living together, although moving nearby was okay. But I felt uneasy about the whole situation. Knowing my mother-in-law, she would have preferred entering a retirement home rather than living with me. She seemed unusually passive, just going along with others' suggestions. Proposed to my husband that we shouldn't rush the decision and have a discussion first. After returning home, we talked things through thoroughly. My husband repeatedly told me not to be swayed by temporary sympathy. Yet, I couldn't shake off the image of my mother-in-law in deep sorrow and wondered if there was a way to live together peacefully. Finally, we agreed to start living together under the condition that we each have our own separate rooms and respect each other's privacy. Once we began living with my mother-in-law, I immediately experienced her harsh treatment. The treatment I received was incomparable to the meddling my mother-in-law used to do when she would show up at our house. As a full-time homemaker, you shouldn't be cutting corners. Bathroom cleaning means scrubbing everything from the walls to the floor. After that, you need to weed the garden. Oh, and polish all the shoes in the entranceway. It was way too much for me to handle in addition to my work. When I went to the entrance, I found all the shoes from the shoe cabinet lined up. Some deliberately dirted. Hoping to gain some approval from my mother-in-law, I spent time on household chores, cutting into my work hours. To meet work deadlines, I had to reduce my sleep, which led to more mistakes and more criticism from her, calling me slow and clumsy. Twice a month, I had work meetings outside. The location for meetings varies each time, but they are usually held in cafes or hotel lounges. Sometimes I received gifts, like bags from famous pastry shops. My mother-in-law always expressed her dissatisfaction. A full-time homemaker who doesn't work, squandering her husband's earnings. If you have that much time, you should focus more on your household duties. Even when I said the items weren't bought by me, she didn't believe it. No way someone would give a country-looking old lady like you a gift. She often called me a country-looking old lady, implying that being in my late 30s and not very stylish was a bad thing. Working from home, I admittedly don't wear makeup much and am casual about my clothing, but is it right for my mother-in-law to mock my appearance? If she criticizes me, I have things I'd like to say about her appearance too. My mother-in-law isn't exactly a beauty herself to be commenting on other people's appearances. She looks just like any other woman in her 60s you might see around. Her clothes are always similar, not showing any high sense of fashion. But I've never pointed that out to her. What's with that look? Got something to say? Just so you know, I'm the one who has a complaint here. Apparently, my mother-in-law went through my room when I was away. She began complaining about how I have too many clothes and bags, calling it extravagant. Although I work from home, I occasionally attend dinners and small parties. I'm not oblivious to fashion and maintain at least the basic etiquette. I buy new clothes, bags, and shoes to match, so I'm presentable. My mother-in-law seems to think I'm making inappropriate purchases with my husband's earnings, but in fact, I bought those things with my own money. My mother-in-law has no business criticizing me for that. Really, with your plump figure, you can't pull off such flashy clothes. She said it was embarrassing and told me to be thankful as she was going to dispose of them. This wasn't the first time she'd taken my clothes. I don't know what she does with them. And her constant nagging always ends with criticism about my infertility. She pressures me to leave my husband quickly, blaming it on my age. At first, I endured it, thinking it stemmed from her loneliness and despair after losing my father-in-law. But as months passed, it only got worse, and I found it harder to tolerate her harassment. One day, my brother-in-law's wife came to visit. She's much younger. I remember hearing she's 7 years younger than him. Being in her early 20s, she's naive and my mother-in-law really likes her. She obediently listens to my mother-in-law, their relationship looking like absolute submission to me. Even when she makes mistakes, her charming attitude never angers my mother-in-law. While she calls me a bad wife and blames my age for my poor memory, she excuses my sister-in-law's mistakes as youth and tells her to learn gradually. The difference in how my mother-in-law treats me and my sister-in-law is like night and day. I always tried to finish my household chores in the morning so that I could dedicate my afternoons to work. At first, my mother-in-law and I had a tacit understanding about this arrangement, but once I firmly decided not to do chores past noon. She was infuriated. She complained to my husband, but he said to let me have a few hours in the afternoon to myself, leaving her speechless. I was able to concentrate on my work for a while, but things changed when my brother-in-law's wife started staying over regularly. You can't even have kids, so at least do the housework properly. She kicked and broke my room's sliding door. Oh, it's all your fault. You didn't come out when called. I'm going to tell mother-in-law that you broke it. Soon after, my mother-in-law burst into my room, yelling loudly. Getting plump because you're holed up and not doing chores in the afternoon, how audacious. She grabbed my hair and dragged me out of the room. My elbows and knees were scraped, and clumps of hair came out, leaving me shocked at being treated less than human. When I was too scared to look up at her, she forcefully raised my face. Wife who can't have kids is just a nuisance, so get out now. As she let go of my hand, I stumbled and hit my nose on the corner of a pillar. Then my brother-in-law's wife added insult to injury. My husband and I are going to live with mother-in-law. You're just in the way, so leave. I had been emotionally crushed by their words many times, but now they had resorted to physical force. Despite my best efforts, my mother-in-law never acknowledged them, and I realized she despised me enough to arrange for me to be replaced without my knowledge. Perhaps tired of berating me, or maybe bored by my lack of reaction, they let me go after a few minutes. I had a hard time staying with my mother-in-law and brother-in-law, so I waited in the corner of my room with bated breath for my husband to come home. That evening, despite coming home late from work, my husband immediately noticed something was off with me and seemed to understand what had happened to some extent. I confessed that I initially supported living with his family, but now I had reached my breaking point. I said I wanted to leave, even if it was just me, but he insisted on leaving together. The next day, he took the day off work and we moved out in a hurry. My mother-in-law made a scene, saying there was no need for my husband to leave. But he completely ignored her. We returned to our original house and started a life free from her harassment. In fact, when we moved to my mother-in-law's house, my husband had suggested we keep our own house without selling it. My husband probably foresaw that something like this might happen someday. Shortly after we left, my brother-in-law and his wife started living with her. My husband apparently received several calls from my mother-in-law asking him to leave me and come back, but he continued to ignore them until the calls eventually stopped. About 6 months later, I received a call from my brother-in-law's wife. Initially, I didn't want to get involved and ignored it, thinking it was my mother-in-law's doing. After repeatedly ignoring her calls, I finally checked the voicemail. In a weak voice, she said, "Help me. It didn't seem like an act, and as a human being, I couldn't ignore someone asking for help, so I decided to answer the next time she called. After a pause, when I finally answered my brother-in-law's wife's call, she was incredibly humble and just wanted someone to listen, so I silently heard her out. According to her, my mother-in-law had taken their bank books, cash cards, and bank seals. My brother-in-law was only given a $20 monthly allowance, and she received nothing at all. The reason given was that as a housewife, she didn't need money. My brother-in-law wasn't even given lunch money, living without a midday meal. My mother-in-law strictly managed the grocery budget, and when she tried to make lunch for him, my mother-in-law threatened to deduct it as a debt from his meager allowance. Their personal lives were completely controlled by her, even down to the usage of toilet paper. If it ran out too quickly, she would count the rolls and complain if she deemed it excessive. While my brother-in-law could escape her surveillance when he went out for work. She felt constantly watched, even when outside, causing her significant mental distress. My brother-in-law, who has always been meek and unable to stand up to his mother since childhood, remained the same even as an adult. She cried, describing their life as a living hell, both financially and mentally. Listening to her, I thought my mother-in-law was living the same way, but apparently, that was not the case. My mother-in-law seems to be controlling my brother-in-law and his wife's bank accounts and spending the money as she pleases. While they were struggling, she even indulged in luxurious meals. Moreover, she intends to have them look after her in her old age, pressuring my brother-in-law to work harder and even telling his wife to do piecework if she has time to sleep. Initially, I thought I would just listen, but hearing about their worse-than-imagined situation, I began to feel sympathy for them. However, the pain they caused me through their harassment is still vividly etched in my memory. Normally, I believe in not doing to others what I wouldn't want done to me and doing for others what I would appreciate. Responding to harassment with harassment only perpetuates the cycle. Besides, my brother-in-law's wife was already suffering the consequences of her actions towards me. As I hesitated to speak, she began to explain something about 6 months ago. She harassed me because my mother-in-law, crying, had asked for her help. She called me in tears saying she was living with her eldest son and his wife but suffering from the daughter-in-law's harassment, unable to sleep, fearing she might be driven out. I believed her and took her side. Initially, she felt I deserved it, but seeing my mother-in-law treating me harshly and causing injuries, she became scared. Believing that I would take revenge on her in her absence or attack her in her sleep, she followed my mother-in-law's instructions, now deeply regretting her actions. She endured her current situation, fearing for her life, believing only my husband and I could help her. It's hard to know how much of her story is true over the phone. I might be deceived, but I'd rather be the one deceived than deceive others. Being called naive is better than being called cruel. With that thought, I decided to help my brother-in-law and his wife. I figured they needed financial assistance to move out and start a new life. Waiting for my husband to come home from his busy job, I told him about the call. I then told him that I had decided to provide financial assistance. My husband suggested using our joint savings for the financial assistance, but since I had made the decision without consulting him, I insisted on providing the funds myself and refused to back down. Actually, there was another reason for my insistence on not backing down. It was also because I wanted to prove a point to my mother-in-law, who had constantly ridiculed and belittled me. 3 days later, my brother-in-law and his wife successfully escaped the mother-in-law's house. It happened on a day she was out for her beauty treatments, paid for with their money. The house was dark when she returned. The brother-in-law's wife was not there. The living room had only a letter left behind. On reading that they had left with my help, my mother-in-law was furious. Still furious, my mother-in-law came to our house and confronted me, demanding to know how I had managed to do it. The note she found stated that they were able to leave the mother-in-law's house because they had received financial assistance from me.
You couldn't possibly have the money to help others. How much do you intend to trouble my son? You must have borrowed it from some dangerous place, right? If my son ends up being chased by debt collectors, it'll all be your fault. You should divorce him before that happens.
It seems my mother-in-law still thinks of me as a reclusive person. Despite remote working being extensively covered in the news a few years ago, she has no understanding of it.
I've told you many times, I work diligently. My husband also said that we both work, right? That's why, when we lived with you, we agreed not to interfere with each other's work while in our own rooms.
Just a few days ago, I received a payment of royalties from 6 months ago, and I showed her my bank book as proof. The deposit was about $60,000, including royalties and fees for magazine articles. I've published several books and have a decent reputation in my field. My husband and I met when he was assigned as my editor in his early days. Now, he's working in a demanding department of a weekly comic magazine. Even when we went for our marriage introduction, he introduced me as the first author I was in charge of, but my mother-in-law, disliking that I was older, never paid attention, only thinking about driving me out. My mother-in-law was shocked to learn the truth. The amount in my bank account was quite significant, and for her, it seemed like a big opportunity had slipped away. At that moment, a baby's cry could be heard from the back room. She looked puzzled. I went to the back room and returned holding my newborn baby in front of my mother-in-law. Beside me stood my husband, who had been watching the baby in the back. In fact, I discovered I was pregnant around the time we started living with my mother-in-law. When she became physically aggressive towards me, we decided it was too dangerous for our unborn child and moved back to our original home. We chose not to tell her about my pregnancy during our stay there, thinking it would be safer for both mother and child. Since we were leaving, there was no need to inform her, so we left without saying anything. You were supposed to be an old, infertile wife. It was all something mother decided on her own. But, being known for having a late pregnancy would be embarrassing in the neighborhood. You've always been like that. Believing even the slightest rumor, buying boxes of expensive water that you didn't understand. Remember how much debt Dad incurred because of that. My mother-in-law interrupted my husband, claiming she had forgotten about the past. Then, completely ignoring our feelings, she demanded that we return to her house with the newborn baby. She even said it was a great relief that my brother-in-law and his wife had left. I'll pass, thank you. Are you planning to take over my account next for your extravagant lifestyle? I'm not working to satisfy your personal desires. I agree. Don't show your face here again. I grabbed my mother-in-law's arm and pushed her out. She cried and made a fuss, asking us to reconsider, but when my husband threatened to call the police due to the disturbance, she finally left. She tried several times to persuade us to move back in with her, but I firmly refused, and after calling the police due to her persistence, she never came back. With my husband and brother-in-law no longer available to rely on for money, it seemed she had resorted to using the inheritance left by my father-in-law. As I mentioned before, due to falling for the sales pitch of a neighbor, my mother-in-law impulsively bought expensive water in bulk, depleting much of my father-in-law's inheritance. They had land and a house, which might have been just enough to shelter them from the elements. However, my mother-in-law couldn't stop her luxurious lifestyle and quickly squandered my father-in-law's inheritance. Not satisfied, she continued to accumulate debt by borrowing from credit cards and financial institutions without the means to repay. The debts were so massive that they couldn't be paid off just by working decently, resulting in the loss of the family home that had been in my father-in-law's family for generations. The house, being old, didn't sell for much, so they had to sell the land as well. They managed to pay off the debts, but only a few $1,000s remained. With this money, she rented a shabby apartment and was forced to work hard despite her old age. Having never even held a part-time job and with her nasty disposition, she struggled at work, often isolated and continuously making mistakes. She returns to an apartment where no one is waiting for her. Living a lonely life without even basic appliances like a microwave, eating cold, discounted ready-made meals once a day. Apparently, after being disowned by us, she desperately sought help from my brother-in-law and his wife. Unable to find where they lived, she ambushed my brother-in-law at his workplace, only to be chased away by security guards thinking she was suspicious. Later, I received a call from my brother-in-law's wife, who was very grateful for our assistance in escaping the mother-in-law's house. Since then, we began talking over the phone about various things. I had always thought she was favored by my mother-in-law, but it turned out she too had been a target of harassment until my husband and I got married. While she wasn't controlled to the extent of having her bank book seized, she was constantly interfered with even in trivial matters. Then, my brother-in-law personally visited my husband to express his sincere gratitude, and since then, our families began to have a closer relationship. 3 months later, when my brother-in-law's wife found out she was pregnant, she became even more eager to have a close relationship with me, wanting to hear about my parenting experience. She was very grateful for the advice from someone who has been through it. Hearing this, I suggested to my current editor the idea of writing an essay about my experiences with childbirth and parenting. I received a very positive response, so it looks like I'll be quite busy moving forward. Balancing parenting and work is challenging but enjoyable. My days are very fulfilling. My husband says that while his current department is rewarding and offers good income, he has heard that children grow up quickly, so he has submitted a transfer request to a department that is more understanding of family priorities.
These days, I'm constantly reminded of how lucky I am to have such a wonderful husband and family.
Thinking they might be at home, I rushed to my former house. At that spot, I was surprised to see Sean being held in chains. Just then, I got a call from Tom.
"Where are you guys right now?" "We're on a trip to Alaska with Lily." "Alaska? On a trip? After what you've done to Sean, what the hell are you thinking?"
"Geez, it's so noisy. The root of the problem is really you, Mom. You only care about Sean and ignores your daughter-in-law. That's why Lily's mood got completely ruined, and it was tough. Well, after chaining up the troublemaker and gave my wife a trip as a gift, and somehow her mood was restored."
"The troublemaker?"
"I was so annoyed with him that I couldn't help it. Anyway, this is clearly a criminal act of child abuse. More than that, I want Tom to pay for this crime, even though he is my own son. So, I embarked on a plan to punish my eldest son and his wife when they returned from their trip. They will return a week later and they will see hell." There was also someone who added further sanction to the two who returned. My name is Jessica Turner, a 60-year-old housewife. After my 2 sons went to college and left home, I lived with my husband until he passed away 10 years ago. Since then, I lived alone for a while. But my younger son, Mike, moved in with me after graduating and getting married. Then Mike had a son, named Sean. Mike had played soccer since he was young, and his wife, a college soccer team manager, had decided on the name for a boy. I was blessed with a happy family thanks to my younger son's family. It was when Sean was in 1st grade. Mike and his wife got into a car accident while out and died. I was at home with Shuto at the time, and upon hearing the news of the accident, I just hugged him. The funeral for them was a quiet affair, attended by close family only. There was my oldest son, Tom, with his wife, Lily. Tom is 35 years old, 2 years older than Mike. Unlike the second son and his wife who were kind to me, I never liked this couple. They didn't even come to greet me when they got married. It's even more than that, they went ahead and decided everything about the wedding on the bride's side of the family, and for me and my second son's family, they just sent invitations without consulting us. Tom had always looked down on me since he was little. His in-laws, who lived with him, taught him that the first child was the heir and therefore the most important person in the family. So he recognized me as an inferior person, disrespected by my in-laws. At the wedding, he even said to me,
"Lily, the woman who will marry me, will be the wife of our cherished heir. If someone picks on her, I really won't forgive them."
To Tom, even his wife, Lily, is of a higher rank than I am. Since then, my eldest son and his wife, Tom and Lily, have avoided coming to our house. Today, Tom acts like he doesn't even know me. Despite just losing his only brother, he doesn't seem sad at all. At the funeral, he's chatting cheerfully with Lily. Then they walked toward me.
"Mom, what are we gonna do about Sean?" "Well, I'd like to take care of him, but I'm not very healthy, so it might be a burden on Sean."
Yes, I've never been very healthy since I was a child. so I am not confident that I will be able to raise Sean well into adult. As I express my concerns, Tom, who's usually cold, gives a surprising response.
Well, Mom, since you can't overexert yourself, how about we take care of Sean? Really? But doesn't that bother Lily? No bother at all. We're supposed to help each other in times of need, right?
I couldn't believe that. Lily, who hadn't even greeted me at her wedding and never spoke a word to me, was now offering such kind words.
Are you sure, Lily? I don't even know how to thank you.
I smiled through tears of gratitude. But then, Tom dropped a bombshell.
So, since we're taking care of Sean, could you leave the house to us? Yeah, Jessica. Why don't you move into an apartment or something? Are you asking me to leave my own house?
Don't talk to me like that, Mom. Sean will be raised as our child. That means the first child and his wife will raise our heir.
Then it's only natural that our family should live at home, right?
But I really can't live together with you, Jessica. You know, we'd have to make compromises, and you've been through it, right? Indeed, I had a tough time living with my in-laws after getting married. Probably, Tom had told Lily about it. And she's using it as a reason not to live with me. It would be easy for me to leave the house, but I'm kinda worried about letting this couple raise Sean. Just as I was about to refuse, Tom cut me off with a strong tone.
Look, it's already decided. We've already signed a lease for an apartment for you and arranged a legal guardian to adopt Sean.
I didn't know Tom had already prepared everything. Any resistance from me would only make things worse. I had no choice but to reluctantly follow Tom's instructions.
All right, I got you guys. But I'm worried about Sean, so I want to visit him sometime. That's okay, right?
Well, I guess that's fine. Tom agreed, but then he exchanged a triumphant look with Lily, as if to say, we did it. After that, I moved out of my family home and into a flat. When I was leaving, Sean clung to me, crying.
Why do you have to leave, Grandma? I want to go with you. I'm sorry, Sean. From today, Uncle Tom and Aunt Lily will be your new mom and dad. Be nice to your new parents, okay?
I nudged Sean and then left the house. Ever since, I've been worried sick about him, unable to stay put. So, I visited him occasionally, making sure not to bother Tom and Lily too much. Each time, I brought some clothes and his favorite foods. I wanted to help Tom and Lily in raising Sean, but Tom didn't seem to appreciate it.
Seriously, Mom, you only care about your grandson, never buying anything for us. I'm the head of this house, you should prioritize us, the first son's family, over Sean.
Tom obviously thought I was favoring Sean and neglecting them. I realized he had completely misunderstood me, but replied carefully to avoid upsetting him further.
Oh, my apologies. I'll be more careful from now on.
Yeah, you should, Jessica.
And now that we're raising Sean, please don't do anything unnecessary.
Lily seemed to think of me as a meddling grandma, too fond of her grandson. So, after that, I tried not to visit the family home too much. Still, I couldn't help worrying about Sean. I checked Tom's social media to see how Sean was doing. There were several photos of Tom and Lily having fun on outings. But not a single photo of Sean was found there. I kept checking for a while, but months later it remains the same. Was Sean really being taken care of? I was really worried. One day, I got a call from Sean's teacher, Teacher Smith.
Sean has been absent without contact for 2 days now. I tried calling his parents, but couldn't reach them, so I contacted you, that emergency contact. Thank you for letting me know, Teacher Smith.
Teacher Smith is always so kind and considerate. He had attended my younger son's funeral and comforted Sean in tears.
I actually visited his house earlier, but no one seemed to be there. I'm worried Sean might be seriously ill or in the hospital. Do you know anything about Sean's situation?
I had a bad feeling when he asked me that.
No, nothing for me. I'm embarrassed to say that I haven't contacted my son and his wife for a while. I see. If there is anything I can do for you, please contact us. Yes, thank you. I'll try contacting my son right away. I'm sorry to cause concern.
After hanging up, I immediately called Tom's cell, but got no answer even after several tries. Next I tried calling Lily, but no one answered the phone. Thinking they might be at home, I rushed to my former house. I rang the doorbell repeatedly, but no one answered. Just as I was about to give up and leave, something happened. I heard a faint sound like someone trying to suppress a sneeze. It was unmistakably Sean's voice. I used the spare key I had to open the front door and entered the house. But Sean was nowhere to be seen.
Sean! Where are you? Answer me!
I shouted as I frantically searched for him. Then, faintly, I heard Sean's voice again.
Grandma!
It was coming from the bedroom upstairs. I hurried up the stairs and opened the bedroom door. At that spot, I was surprised to see Sean being held in chains.
Oh my God, Sean! I'm here!
I rushed to him, hugged him, and tried to unchain him. Sean's face was frail, with tear stains on his cheeks. The chain was too sturdy to break. I immediately called 911. While waiting for the emergency services, I kept talking to Sean.
Sean, Grandma's here, you're safe now. But why didn't you call for help?
In a weak voice, Sean replied.
Uncle Tom said he wouldn't forgive me if I made any noise.
It seemed Sean still couldn't call Tom Dad.
How awful, you must have been so scared.
I said as I hugged him again. Soon, the emergency team arrived and cut the chain. Sean was taken to the hospital, and I accompanied him. Thankfully, his life wasn't in danger, but he had to be hospitalized for a while. After completing the hospital admission process, Tom called me.
Mom? I saw a missed call. What's up?
He is saying so carefreely with a seemingly delighted tone. I asked him, trying to control my rising feelings.
What's up? Where are you guys right now? We're on a trip to Alaska with Lily. Alaska? On a trip? After what you've done to Sean, what the hell are you thinking? What? Mom, you went inside the house? How come? Just because you have a key, doesn't mean you can enter without permission.
He replied in a panicked tone. I was pissed off, and I yelled back.
Of course I did. Teacher Smith called me and I rushed to the house. If I had left Sean alone any longer, what do you think would have happened to him?
Don't yell so loud. Lily is sleeping right now.
What? Tom, who's more important to you, your wife or your child?
When I asked this, he replied with something unbelievable. Geez, it's so noisy. The root of the problem is really you, Mom. You only care about Sean and ignores your daughter-in-law. That's why Lily's mood got completely ruined, and it was tough. Well, after chaining up the troublemaker and gave my wife a trip as a gift, and somehow her mood was restored.
The troublemaker?
I was so annoyed with him that I couldn't help it. Despite my feelings, he says something that pushes me further. Well, we did get the family home because of him, so can't complain much. But Mom, from now on, don't just care about Sean. Take care of your daughter-in-law too. After saying this, he abruptly hung up. I couldn't forgive him and his wife anymore. Anyway, this is clearly a criminal act of child abuse. More than that, I want Tom to pay for this crime, even though he is my own son. So, I embarked on a plan to punish my eldest son and his wife when they returned from their trip. 1 week later, when they came back home, they were shocked to see their transformed home. There waiting for them was the site of their house, which had been completely cleared, and me, who was staring at them. Late, aren't you?
What the heck? Why is our house gone? Where's our stuff? Where the hell did you take it?
Don't worry, Lily. I sent your stuff back to your parents' house. The rest, I had it all cleared out. Yes. I had sold the family home and cleared the land while they were away. Of course, I moved all of Sean's stuff to my house.
What? How could you do this to me? That was my house. You had no right to sell it.
I had every right. I let you live there, but I never transferred the ownership to you.
Damn it. I didn't realize. But you didn't have to sell it. Now we have nowhere to live. What are you going to do about this? This is beyond mother-in-law bullying. This is just cruel.
Lily said, looking like she was about to cry, so I retorted.
Who's being cruel? Who's worse, chaining a child and going on a trip? That's far more cruel. I didn't chain him, he did it.
I was astounded by Lily's childish excuse. Sean said Lily was laughing when Tom chained him. How can a mother watch her child be put in danger and not intervene?
Anyway, I provided the family home believing you would take care of Sean responsibly. But you locked up a child and behaved recklessly, so I can't let you get away with this. That's why I sold the house.
When I stated this clearly, Tom retorted with a troubled look on his face.
That's insane. I only chained Sean as a punishment. He wasn't listening to us at all. Yeah, Sean was spoiled by you, getting everything he wanted. So he deserves to be punished like this.
I lost my patience with their reasoning. Claiming it was a punishment is nothing but an excuse that abusive parents should never use. I was not going to spare them, even though Tom was my own son.
Enough! What you have done is clearly child abuse. That means it is a criminal act, and of course I am calling the police.
When I exclaimed this, the two of them showed an expression of utmost shock.
Mom, you're joking, right? You wouldn't really turn your own son into the police? Yeah, Jessica. If you do that, what about Sean? He'll be troubled without his parents.
Lily, who had been rude to me until now, changed to a polite tone out of fear. Unaware that it was too late. I looked at their frightened faces and couldn't help but smile slyly.
Hee hee, you too. You did such terrible abuse and thought I hadn't informed the police yet? What?
At the same time as the two men's startled voices, the sound of police car sirens approached them. After Sean was hospitalized, I went to a lawyer's office to discuss what should be done about my first son and his wife. I had called 911 before they returned and told them about the incident in detail. The police car stopped in front of us, and an officer got out. Is there a Jessica Turner who made a report earlier? Yes, it's me. These two here are the son and daughter-in-law I talked about. Please take care of it.
Hey, Mom, what's going on here?
A police officer approached Tom, who was panicking. Tom Turner, right? We'll need to hear the full story at the station. Please come with us, along with your wife.
What? No, I don't want to go.
Lily, if you claim to be innocent, you better cooperate, or it'll look even more suspicious. After my words, Lily quieted down. And both were taken into custody by the police. Later, I also went to the station to explain the details of the scene. The case went to trial, and as a result, Tom and Lily were arrested for child abandonment. Given the life-threatening neglect Sean suffered, Tom received a sentence of 3 years in prison. I took in Sean after his discharge and decided to raise him in my home. Sean's recovery was faster than expected, and he's now completely back to his healthy self, both physically and mentally. I told Sean about Tom and Lily's arrest, but he didn't seem too upset.
Uncle Tom and Aunt Lily did bad things to me, so they deserve to be caught by the police, right?
Sean had been through so much trouble since being left with my first son and his wife. He had grown into a stronger kid than I had realized.
Sean, I'm so sorry for all the trouble I've caused you. From now on, Grandma will always be by your side, so don't worry. Really? Yay! Now I'll be with Grandma all the time? I want to play soccer once I'm all better.
Sean said this with a gentle smile. His smile, when he talked about playing soccer, reminded me so much of Mike when he was a child.
Sure, honey. Grandma will be there to cheer you on all the way. Let's give it our best. Yeah, thanks, Grandma.
After that, Sean and I enjoyed many happy days together. Little did I know, a dark cloud was about to loom over our happiness. Since then, I had used the money from selling the family home to buy a new house where Sean and I lived. Sean began learning the soccer club at that time. 3 years later. Now in 4th grade, Sean was excelling in his youth soccer team. That was the day of his match. I was all geared up to cheer him on. As I entered the stadium and was about to sit on the chair, I heard a voice behind me, "Hey, Mom," which sent a chill down my spine. I turned around hesitantly, and there were Tom and Lily.
"When did you two get out?" "Hee hee, I got out 5 days ago, Mom. I kept it a secret to surprise you here today."
At the moment, I had a bad feeling about that. They didn't need to show up at Sean's game, especially to surprise me. Could this mean some big trouble? The match was important anyway. I had to make sure Sean didn't realize they were here.
"But how did you know I'd be here? You shouldn't even know Sean started playing soccer."
He grinned at my question.
"Lily told me. She got out of prison before me and went back to her parents' house. So she even found out that Sean was playing soccer and what team he was on."
"That's right, Jessica.
"Even if you don't let me see Sean, I still consider myself his mother. It's only natural for me to find out these things."
She also said the same thing.
"Okay, I get it. But please, keep it down and don't stir up Sean." "What? Why? It's Sean's big moment. We should cheer as loud as we can." "No, please don't."
Before I could finish, the stands erupted in cheers as the players appeared on the field.
"Whoa! There's Sean! He's grown so much. Go for it, Sean! Oh my God, Sean! Mom's here watching you. Do your best."
Their voices stood out among the crowd's cheers. I felt anxious, hoping Sean wouldn't notice them. I made eye contact with Sean. He probably realized who was behind me. But Sean just looked at me with an unfazed smile. Misunderstanding Sean's smile, they were overjoyed.
"Look! Sean's happy to see me." "Of course he is. It's been a while since he's seen his dad."
While they were blissfully happy, I was worried. Would this affect Sean's game? No, what's important is that the game ends safely without any incidents. That's what I kept hoping for in my heart. Despite my worries, Sean's team won a great victory, and the match ended without a hitch. But we still have the problem. I was waiting to meet Sean at the players' entrance, but also they followed me. Even when I told them, "Don't follow me," they ignored me, and I couldn't shake them off. While waiting, he said to me, "Mom, we've changed and want to raise Sean properly. Can you let us take care of him again?"
"What? Are you nuts? You want me to leave the house I'm living in now, don't you? I won't fall for that again."
"No, I'm not saying you should leave. Why can't we live together? The house is big enough, right? And it must be hard for you to raise a child alone." Was he really being kind? No, I could tell his eyes weren't smiling. I've been his mother long enough to know. He probably just wanted to get into the house.
"What's the matter, Tom? You don't have to come back to my house. You can stay at Lily's parents' house."
When I said this, he clicked his tongue in frustration, as if he thought I had read his mind.
"I don't like staying with Lily's parents. They act as if they're just putting up with me. They boss me around, and when I complain, they say, 'We're letting you stay, so just bear with it.' Well, that's how it is. Just bear with it, as Lily's parents say. Don't worry about Sean. I can raise him just fine by myself."
I intentionally showed a cold attitude, not to fall into his trap. Then Lily turned to me and hurled an unbelievable insult.
"How can you say that? We're kindly offering to live with you, and this is how you respond? Modern parenting is tough, not like in the old days. A child raised only by a grandma won't turn out well. Who says a child raised by whom don't grow up well?"
Teacher Smith came out saying so loudly. He had been Sean's first-grade teacher and was his fourth-grade teacher this year.
"Teacher Smith, you came to watch the match?" "Yes, there are several students from my class in this youth team. Sean, he was amazing today."
After saying this, Teacher Smith glared at Tom and Lily.
"You're Tom and Lily, right? When Sean was in first grade, you were his parents for about half a year, but you never showed up for school events or parent-teacher meetings, did you?" Well, yes, but we were busy. Instead, that grandmother went for us, so it's fine, isn't it?
Lily said, pointing at me and making excuses. In reality, they weren't busy at all. They simply avoided interacting with other parents because they were not good at socializing. Nor did they ask me directly to do that. Sean told me no one was coming for him, and feeling sorry for him, so I decided to attend instead. He seemed to see right through their flimsy excuses. He told her this way.
Sean's grandmother, Jessica, has been actively participating in PTA activities since then and now takes great care of the youth soccer team. It's rare to find someone so dedicated to their grandchild. In contrast, you two, despite being the parents, didn't seem to be involved in his upbringing at all.
They were just flustered by his clear statement. Then Sean came up to me after a meeting with his team.
Grandma, did you see? I scored 2 goals. Good job, Sean. I saw everything. You were amazing.
As I greeted Sean and held his hand, Tom came up to me and tried to pull me away from Sean.
Sean! It's been a while, buddy. Dad missed you a lot. Let's live together again, huh?
Tom was buttering Sean, as if he forgot what Teacher Smith said to him earlier. But Sean wasn't swayed by such sweet talk. He quickly pulled his hand away and yelled at them.
You're not my parents. When I grow up, I'm going to be a professional soccer player and repay my grandma. So you two just go away.
Sean then kicked them out. Tom couldn't say anything back. Giving up, they quietly left the place. I thanked Teacher Smith for his help.
Thank you so much, Teacher Smith. Your presence helped me keep Sean in my life. I was at a loss on how to handle Tom and Lily. It's nothing. I just couldn't stand by and do nothing. It's your love for Sean that protected him.
Teacher Smith kindly said this. And it strengthened my resolve to keep protecting Sean. Since then, Tom has been a nuisance at Lily's parents' house. However, his parents-in-law tell him to be thankful that we let him stay in our house, and he has to deal with this every day. Tom still frequently complains to me about his in-laws. Unfortunately, his complaints reached his in-laws, making his situation with them even worse. After his release, Tom rejoined the workforce but faced constant harassment from colleagues for being an ex-convict and was treated as a nuisance. This led to him not staying long at any job and frequently changing workplaces. This situation became another reason for his in-laws to berate him. Lily, infuriated by this mistreatment of her husband, ended up having serious conflicts with her parents. Eventually, Tom and Lily were kicked out of Lily's parents' house. Once, they came to my house, begging to be taken back.
Mom, I'm truly sorry for everything. Please let us stay here. I'll be a good daughter-in-law. Please let us stay.
But I refused, saying, You're adults. Figure it out yourselves, and sent them away. They now live in an old apartment and work part-time. As for Sean, he's in high school now. Sean is still working hard at soccer, and the team he joined has won the state tournament and aiming for the national championship. From the stands, as I cheered him on, Sean shone brilliantly in my eyes. He still says that once he graduates from high school, he wants to become a professional and repay me for everything. But for me, just watching him grow up is the greatest joy of all. Watching Sean on his big day, I murmured to myself from the stands.
You've already repaid me enough. Thank you, Sean.
My name is Sally Turner. I've been divorced for 3 years now, having parted ways with my ex-husband, John. During our marriage, there were many tough times, and the divorce was pretty one-sided. I'd love to erase such a past completely, like rubbing it out with an eraser. But, it seems human memory isn't so easily erased. That's why I hoped never to see him again. However, wishes like that seem to get betrayed quite often. For instance, I unexpectedly bumped into him recently at a local movie theater. Standing beside him was his young new wife, and the child he fathered after our divorce, holding John's hand. Why did I have to run into them? Of all the theaters in town, we had to choose the same one. What bad luck. It made me want to curse my fate. I just hoped he wouldn't notice me. Or at least not come over to talk. Pretending not to notice, I was suddenly approached by John, who looked at me mockingly, just like old times. Can't believe I'm running into you here. What are you watching, a romance? No luck with men, so you come to find satisfaction in movies? Poor thing. I'm here because my kid really wanted to see this film. We came as a family. Movies are best watched with family, right? Must be lonely alone, huh? Oh, really? I replied casually, not wanting to engage, but John didn't let me leave. What's the rush? Let's catch up. By the way, my wife is expecting again. Quite a contrast to an infertile woman, huh? Look at her belly, impressive, right? Surely a healthy baby will be born. Well, that's nice for you. Congratulations. John's wife looked far into her pregnancy. The first child was conceived while he was still married to me. He suddenly brought home a young woman, announcing she was pregnant and he wanted a divorce. I never thought he would do something like that, and I was left speechless by this turn of events. Our relationship began when we were working at the same company. We ended up sitting together at a drinking party and got carried away with silly conversations fueled by alcohol. I enjoyed those moments, and soon we were going out for meals and drinks. He quickly took up residence in my heart. Before I knew it, I was convinced he was my soulmate and decided to marry him. He was so kind in the early days of our marriage, and life was incredibly sweet. We both loved kids and talked about starting a family soon. How many kids do you want? 9, maybe. Though it was unrealistic, I laughed and indulged in those pleasant dreams. A life surrounded by many children. But a year passed, then 2, and no children came. In our 3rd year, we started fertility treatments, but still no sign of a child. I often went to the hospital alone, though most couples came together. Tests showed there was nothing wrong with me. That meant the issue might have been with John. Thinking this, I asked him to get tested. But his reaction was terrible. Why do I have to get tested? Are you saying there's something wrong with me? It's always the woman's issue, right? If you were capable of having kids, there wouldn't be a problem. We had started the fertility treatment journey saying we'd get through it together, but as 2, then 3 years passed without results, John grew colder and eventually stopped even trying to have a child with me. Yet he insisted I was the problem. There's no way we could have a child in such a situation. I can't count how many times I swallowed those words. But I desperately wanted a child. Probably having a child would bring the old John back. I believed so. But his heart only grew colder and harder with time. Your body is a piece of junk. Can't have kids? That's a defect. Marrying you was a mistake. I'm truly miserable. He began to mock me like this, and eventually, we stopped talking altogether. I sensed the end of our relationship was near. I probably knew deep down that I was no longer in his heart. Yet, I still wanted to have a child. So, I made a last-ditch effort and said to John, "The doctor said you should get tested too. Will you come with me next time?" This was my last chance. If this didn't work, I'd give up. That's what I thought when I said it. But his response was the same as always. Why should I get tested when you're the defective one? Don't be ridiculous. And then he brought his pregnant mistress. She's pregnant, so I'm divorcing you. Sign the divorce papers. I had tried so hard. He had expelled me from his heart and made room for this woman. Realizing this, I understood it was over. Fine, we'll divorce. But just this once, get a fertility test. Why should I? Her being pregnant means there's nothing wrong with me. No need for that. If you get tested, I won't ask for alimony. Alimony? For what? You cheated, so I could ask for alimony. John muttered a small ah. He probably hadn't expected me to say that. But hearing this, he agreed to the test, though he said it was pointless, just to avoid paying alimony. Despite such a painful separation, somehow, I managed to get back on my feet.
You couldn't have kids when you were with me. It's crazy that we tried so hard and it never happened.
Where did he get the idea he tried hard? I thought I was the one who tried hard.
Towards the end, I just didn't find you attractive anymore. I didn't feel like doing it. But I thought it would be cruel to tell you the truth, so I kept quiet. I'm such a gentleman, aren't I? You lost interest because you were having an affair, right? If you get cheated on, it means you lacked charm. But this woman here, she's always attractive, no matter how much time passes.
Oh, that's nice for you. I've really come to realize how good it was to leave you. Glancing at his new partner, she seemed disinterested. Her eyes looked lifeless. I wonder what John thinks about her expression.
You're a defective product. I can't believe I put up with a woman who couldn't even have children. I wanted kids. It's impossible that the problem was with me.
Is that so?
Of course. The fact that she's pregnant with our second child proves it. I'm always spot on. You kept saying I should get tested, but in the end, there were no issues, right? If there were, you would have contacted me saying, I was wrong, it was your fault. The fact that you didn't means you realized the problem was with you. What a pitiful person.
John was laughing loudly. It made everyone around us look at me with pity.
You wouldn't understand, but having a child is great. They're so cute. I never knew they could be this adorable. I always wanted them, but I only realized it after becoming a parent. Children are like angels.
That's great for you. You probably want them too, but with your body, that's impossible. How about adopting? It doesn't have to be your own flesh and blood, right? You might grow to love them eventually. Aren't you going to watch a movie? We've already finished watching. Are you about to go? Yes, so I'll be leaving now.
Enjoy your imaginary romance. You probably won't be able to marry anyone anyway.
As I started to walk away from John, I stopped, irritated, and approached him to whisper in his ear. You really know nothing. What do you mean? I smiled slyly. What's that supposed to mean? Remember, at the end, you got tested for infertility. Yeah, so? Since you never said anything. I didn't say anything because I pitied you. The truth is, the one without the seeds was you.
Lies. I have 2 children.
I'm not lying. Why don't you take a DNA test? Then you'll know the truth. Ever heard of cuckooing?
Lies.
John's face went pale. His eyes widening in shock, his lips trembling. He must have had a hunch, but was desperately denying it. Poor guy. Walking away from John, I smirked and said, well then, goodbye, unhappy John. I thought that would definitely upset him. I had hoped that if I could just get back at him this much, it would be enough for me. I thought it wasn't my place to intervene anymore, whether John ended up unhappy, whether the child he believed to be his wasn't actually his, or whatever he chose to believe. So, I thought that was the end of it. But then, after a while, John contacted me. His voice sounded exhausted, like he was walking through the depths of despair. Well, long time no see. How are things with your wife? We got divorced. Oh, really? What do you want? I just wanted to tell you something. I don't need any updates from you. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. No, I needed to tell you the truth. Why? We're strangers now, aren't we? I got a DNA test done after that. I guess you're ignoring what I said. Turns out, the kid isn't mine. Oh, I knew that, but that's unfortunate for you. Not my kid, can you believe that? Well, legally, it's still your child, isn't it?
Legal or not, it's not my kid.
I can't help you with that, can I? I confronted her with the test results. Oh. Instead of crying or apologizing, she just bluntly said the kid isn't mine. Really? When I asked what she meant, she said she was seeing someone else at the time. When she got pregnant and told the other guy, he bailed. So, she decided to tell me it was mine because I was happy about it, and it's easier to raise a child with two people. That's something. I thought the baby she's carrying now must be mine. But when I asked, she just laughed. Said there's no way it's mine. Despite being intimate almost every night, nothing happened with me. But with a guy she started seeing half a year ago, she got pregnant right away, so the baby is definitely his. So that's why she had that dead look in her eyes. Well, you are infertile, so that makes sense. But wow, that's quite a story. Nothing much I can say to that. No, I did say something. I asked her why she did all this. And what did she say? She said she wasn't happy with our life together. Oh. I even confronted her about having an affair while being married. You should know all about that, having had affairs yourself. No, my affairs were different. I had a legitimate reason, I wanted kids. But she cheated even though she already had a child. That's unforgivable. Either way, it's unforgivable. So, she said life with you was boring, and then what? I guess there's not much you could say after that. Yeah. I couldn't say anything. All I could say was let's get divorced. Oh, so you split up, even though there's a child involved. Yeah, because that child isn't mine. And the one she's carrying isn't mine either. What other choice did I have but to leave? If you do that, she'll have to raise 2 kids alone. Not really. When I said I wanted a divorce, I thought she'd apologize, but she said it was just perfect. What do you mean? The guy she's currently seeing will become the dad for both kids, she said. Wow, impressive. One man is ready to abandon a child he's raised just because it's not his, while another is willing to take care of 2, knowing only one is his. He must be a kind person. Good for her, she might find happiness. I'm the one who's unhappy. Well, you made your bed. She did exactly what you said, cuckooed me. Looks like it. But you were happy until now, right? Well, yes, but... So, you tried to dump her but ended up getting dumped, huh? Dumped? That's right. But it's fair, isn't it? You had another woman and left me, so what goes around comes around. Who would have thought it'd turn out like this? You wouldn't have, I'm sure. So, was that what you wanted to tell me? It's not so much that I wanted to tell you, but I felt I had to. Why? It's none of my business. Even hearing it, I don't feel anything. Maybe, but... Well, tough luck, I guess. Hopefully, you'll meet someone nice next time. Yeah. John seemed to want to say more, but I ended the call. A few days later, John showed up at my house. Unexpectedly, holding a bouquet of roses. What are you doing? He pushed the bouquet at me and said, date me. Excuse me? You're not remarried, right? I mean, you couldn't possibly be. So, I'll marry you. Date me. How rude. I am married. What? Not what. I'm married. That's a lie. How can someone who can't have children get married? What do you mean? I mean, you're infertile. How could an infertile woman get married? What a bias. Why would you want to date me with the intention of marrying, knowing I can't have children? Because we lived together before, and starting a new relationship from scratch is a hassle. What kind of person says that? Besides, I can trust you. But I can't trust you, can I? I'm willing to put up with you being infertile and all. I've been telling you, you're the one who's infertile. There's no way I'm infertile. That doesn't make any sense. Wait here a minute. With that, I went to the back and pulled out the infertility test results John had taken 3 years ago. Good thing I kept these. Here, take a look at these results. How can I believe this? It's 3 years old. Why not? The accuracy of tests from 3 years ago can't be trusted. What's changed in 3 years? I'm not infertile. Then why didn't she conceive your child? It was just a coincidence. Things like that happen. Too many coincidences, don't you think? Just go home, please. But you don't have a child either, right? I can accept you for that. Just then, a child came from the back.
Mommy, I'm hungry.
Just a minute, sweetie. I'll get you a snack after the man leaves. Okay.
Who's that child?
That's my child. Why? When we met at the theater, there was no child. She just wasn't there at that moment. She was in another part of the theater. You left her alone? Of course not. My husband was looking after her.
Husband? Child? You never said anything.
I didn't need to. You assumed I wasn't married and didn't have kids without even asking. So that's how it is. Who's the child's father? I told you, she's my child. That's strange. The kid looks about 3 years old. That's right. So, she was in your belly when we split up. She wasn't in my belly when we split up. She was conceived after. Is that really true? What are you doubting? Could it really be my child?
Sorry, but this child was conceived right after we split.
So, you're saying the child was in your belly when we split? Why would you think that? It's completely different. This is my current husband's child. After hearing about our breakup, he, who had always had feelings for me, shared his feelings. At first, I refused, but knowing him well and seeing his sincerity and kindness, I thought he could be the one. So, we started dating thinking we might get married. So, you're saying you married your husband while carrying my child and then passed it off as his? Don't lump me in with you. This child is legitimately my husband's. If you keep saying such things, I'll sue you for defamation.
How can that be? You and I couldn't conceive no matter how much we tried. And yet, as soon as we split, you got pregnant? That's too good to be true.
Well, it happened. Besides, you're infertile while my husband is healthy, so it's only natural.
No, it's a lie. That child is mine. My child was here all along, and look how cute they are. I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Fine, you don't have to lie. The whole I'm married thing is a lie, right? You've been raising my child. You're wrong. This child is mine and my husband's. You have nothing to do with this. Stop it. You're scaring the child. Come on, let's just leave it. I'll accept everything and live with you and the child. I can't believe you. What is this all about? You can't possibly be married. You loved me, remember? That's a lot of confidence, but any love I had for you faded a long time ago. It faded gradually as you kept saying terrible things to me and disappeared completely when you brought your mistress. I was probably terrible, yes. But it was all because I wanted children. Now that I know there's a child, let's forgive everything. I'll forgive you too. What are you talking about forgiving? There's nothing for you to forgive. Just take these flowers and leave.
No. Let's go together. We can even live here starting today. I'll be the dad from now.
Just then, my husband came home and stood behind John. Who's going to be the dad? I'm the father of this child. What?
Welcome back. You're early. Daddy, welcome home. I'm home, Mary.
Who are you? I'm Sally's husband. What? Didn't I tell you? I remarried right after our divorce. You were having an affair? Why would you think that? So, who is this guy? Well, I am Sally's ex-husband. What's going on? He's my former husband. Ah, the one who left with his mistress. Right. And now he's divorced. Eh? Why? Because his wife cheated and both kids turned out to be her lovers. And now he wants to date me again. And what about the bouquet of roses? Well, even though I said I was married and Mary was my husband's child, John kept insisting that it was impossible for me to have a child so soon after our divorce, so he claimed the child was his. But you're infertile, right? I think you're holding the test results? Oh, yes. And it clearly states you're infertile. How could you have a child then? That's impossible, isn't it? Those tests aren't always absolute. Maybe they're wrong. Or maybe you're the infertile one, not me. What are you talking about? My husband, unlike you, willingly took an infertility test because he knew how much you had hurt me. Thanks to that, we both found out we weren't infertile and were able to become parents. Please don't say such ridiculous things. You must be being deceived. Just because you deceive people, don't drag my husband into it. You'd be happier with me. I was unhappy because I was with you. I will never get back together with you. No woman wants to reunite with a man who's already failed her. So, please leave. Then what am I supposed to do? Find someone else. Someone who isn't me. John kept contacting me. First questioning whether Mary was his child, but gradually becoming more assertive, eventually demanding, "Give me back my child." Why are you trying to steal my child? If you really want a child that much, why don't you just live with me? Fed up with his relentless claims, I suggested a DNA test between Mary and John. But John vehemently refused. There's no need for that. It's a fact that she's my child. She looks just like me. Where does she resemble you? She looks nothing like you. You're blind. We already had a DNA test when she was born to prove she's my husband's child. Why would you do that? You thought she might not be your child, didn't you? That's why you did it. No. I wanted to make sure we had proof of parentage in case something like this happened. It was confirmed with 99.9% certainty that she's my husband's child. I can't believe that. What will it take for you to believe? Think about it calmly. It's impossible for a child to be conceived so soon after a divorce. If she was conceived right after our divorce, she must be my child. But there was a gap, you know. She was conceived after I married. You can say anything you want. Fine, if nothing I say will change your mind, then I'm done. If you're not going to listen, I'm cutting off all contact with you. Don't ever reach out to me again. No way. Give me back my child. After that, I blocked John's calls and decided to call the police if he showed up at my house. I thought surely he would give up after this. However, John took an unthinkable action. As working parents, we placed Mary in daycare, but he pretended to be her father and came to pick her up. I received a call from the daycare saying an unknown person had come to collect her. I asked them not to hand her over and rushed to pick her up myself. When I arrived, there was John, causing a scene, demanding the teachers to hand over the child. What are you doing? I came to pick my child up. I'm telling you, she's not your child. No matter what you say, Mary is my child. If you don't stop, I'll call the police. Say what you want. I'm just telling the truth. John, you're being unreasonable. You know Mary isn't your child, right? If you want a child so badly, why not adopt? Find a woman to marry. Become a parent to a child who doesn't have one. Isn't that what you told me? I want my own genetic child. Other kids aren't mine. But Mary isn't your child either. Stop it. You're causing trouble at the daycare, bothering the teachers. If you really cared as a parent, think about what you're doing. You're just making Mary suffer. I'm not wrong. I'm right. There's no way the child you bore isn't mine. How can you think that? Because she's my child. John kept insisting she was his child, refusing to budge. I explained everything to the daycare teachers, but this was no small matter. After discussing it with my husband, we decided to report it to the police. Thankfully, a restraining order was issued. For a while, I was worried he might still show up, but it seems John finally gave up, and we could regain our normal life. However, I heard John had to be monitored by his in-laws because of his actions. He still believes he's not in the wrong and that I took his child away. So self-centered. I wondered how John was doing. Out of curiosity, I contacted his in-laws. It turns out things have gotten worse for him. He's obsessed with the child and can't focus on work. It led to many mistakes. He was even sidelined at work. Despite the restraining order, John still occasionally went to the daycare, secretly watching Mary. One of John's colleagues who also sent their child to the same daycare reported to their boss, saying, "That guy is trouble." Concerned about potential problems at the company, the management decided to transfer him to a distant location, essentially demoting him. Despite being sent far away, he still sends letters claiming Mary is my child. I just ignore them. After 6 months, when the restraining order expired, John reappeared. Surprisingly traveling from afar. Driven by not being able to see her, he eventually kidnapped Mary, taking her around different places. Shocked that my child didn't return home, I called the police, and it turned out John was the culprit. Now he's in jail, crying alone. I can only hope those are tears of regret. As for me, I've discovered I'm pregnant with our second child. My husband's, of course. We're looking forward to the birth, living happily. My name is Rachel Sander, I'm 36 years old. I hate to toot my own horn, but I'm a career woman working my tail off. My family consists of my husband Sean, our daughter Lily, and me, a family of 3. Sean and I, both working professionals, are in our 9th year of marriage, and our adorable Lily is now in her 2nd year of elementary school. We have our occasional squabbles, but I like to think we're just an average, close-knit family. But recently, something's been bothering me a bit. Hey, Rachel, could you spot me again this month? Really? Again? Please, I'm begging you. I've had a lot of social drinks lately and I need the extra cash. Think of it as supporting your husband. Please, I'm on my knees here. Sean, putting his hands together and bowing his head like a kid. Lately, he's always asking for more pocket money or to get it in advance. We both work, but managing the finances has mostly been my gig. Not that I mind, really. I even enjoy it, thinking of it as part of my responsibilities at home. Frankly, I earn way more than Sean does. So, I figure I can afford to be a bit flexible. But it's getting a bit much. I pull a few $100 bills from my wallet and hand them over. He lights up like a kid on Christmas and bows deeply in gratitude. All right, but this is the last time for this month, okay? Instead of asking me for money, why don't you focus on getting a promotion? I pat him on the back, half joking, half serious. Oh. Yeah, I got it. I'll do my best. He clutches the bills and answers with a sheepish grin. It's hard to take him seriously. I don't know if he gets it or not. I sigh. And so, life went on until that fateful day. Yes, that was the case, until that day. On a sunny holiday, Sean and Lily went out for a drive together. I couldn't join them because of work. It wasn't the first time they went out without me. And each time I felt both grateful that Sean was taking care of Lily and guilty that we couldn't go as a family. Lily's a good kid, understands my busy work schedule and always cheers me on. Her kindness has been a real lifesaver. I waved them off as they left in the car and headed to work. Then, a few hours later, that life-changing call came. Hello, is this Rachel Sanders' phone? I'm afraid your husband and daughter have been in a serious car accident. Upon hearing the initial news, my mind went completely blank. I can't remember what I said, but after somehow conveying the situation to my boss, I was urgently told to leave work and go there immediately. I rushed to the hospital where Sean and Lily had been taken. Excuse me, I heard my husband and daughter were brought in by ambulance, I said, barely catching my breath at the reception. They quickly led me to the front of the operating room. Operating room? Were their injuries so severe they needed surgery? That's right, they mentioned it was a pretty serious accident. A wave of anxiety and despair hit me, and I clenched my hands tightly in front of my chest. There was a doctor in scrubs outside the operating room. I must have looked awful. Are you the wife? He asked, trying to calm me down with a gentle voice. Please, try to stay calm. Your daughter, Lily, is in emergency surgery.
Emergency surgery? Is she that badly hurt?
Yes. And your husband, Sean, who was driving, has some fractures but his life isn't in danger. He's sedated right now.
Oh my!
I felt like the world was spinning. I couldn't believe it. They were both smiling when I saw them off in the morning. How could this happen? I only half listened to the doctor after that. I couldn't take it in. Next thing I knew, I was sitting on a bench in the waiting room, designated for families of those in surgery. I felt so unsteady. In this state, I couldn't even go see Sean, who was sleeping. All I could think about was Lily in surgery. Lily, Lily, Lily. My daughter, my precious child, why did this happen to Lily? Please, let her be okay. I prayed, holding my hands tightly. Then, my cell phone rang in my bag. Shoot, I forgot to put it on silent mode. It was my in-laws' home phone number. Right, I needed to call them too. I grabbed my phone and stumbled outside.
Hello?
I heard a familiar, cheerful voice.
Hey, Mom? What?
It was Lily's unmistakable voice on the phone. I was confused. Was this a hallucination? Lily was supposed to be in surgery. Ignoring my confusion, Lily's cheerful voice continued. Hey, Dad hasn't called, so are you picking me up today? Grandma and Grandpa said I can stay over because they have tomorrow off too.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean? Is that you, Lily?
What? What are you talking about, Mom? Oh, you don't recognize it because it's Grandma and Grandpa's phone? It's me, Lily. What, really? What's going on? What does this mean? I had thought that Sean and Lily went out together and got into the accident. Could it be they didn't go for a drive together? Did Sean drop Lily off at his parents' place along the way? If so, and if Lily is safe, then who's the one in surgery right now?
Just wait a second. Things are a bit hectic right now. I'll call you back in a bit.
I quickly hung up and stumbled back into the hospital. A nurse noticed me and rushed over, telling me that Lily's surgery was finished. She was in the ICU and, although sedated for the day, I could see her. I was led by the nurse to the room where Lily was. When the door opened, I was struck by a sight I couldn't possibly put into words. From that day on, the relationship between Sean and me began to crumble. The next day, I packed some essentials and went to Sean's hospital room. He was luxuriously in a private room, displaying a pathetic, wilted smile on the bed. What a mess. Can't believe I got caught up in such a big accident. Sorry for causing trouble. Sean laughed it off with a carefree, lighthearted tone. He thought I was clueless, laughing foolishly. If you could call it business as usual, then it was just that. Everything about it was irksome now. But I kept my emotions in check, set down the things, and turned to him. Hey, Sean. I thought you and Lily were in the accident together. But it turns out the girl in the passenger seat was someone else's daughter, right? Who is she? I asked him straight-faced, pretending to know nothing. Sean, trying to come up with an excuse, was visibly flustered. Oh, that girl? She's Lily's friend. Yeah, from the same class. Found her abandoned on the road during the drive and thought to give her a lift home. Then, we got into the accident, he. Really? I didn't know you were so thoughtful towards children, prioritizing her over Lily and dropping her off at your parents'. How kind of you.
Yeah, that's right. Couldn't just leave her there, you know. Man, what a terrible thing to abandon a kid like that.
He started babbling, trying to cover up, his voice unnaturally loud. I watched coldly, but he was too flustered to notice my icy gaze. After a few more meaningless exchanges, I left the room quickly. I couldn't stand breathing the same air as him for another second. The next day, I visited the hospital again. As I approached Sean's room, I could hear voices arguing. The door was closed, but the voices were loud enough to be heard through it. It must have been quite a disturbance for the hospital. I quietly opened the door a few inches to peek inside. There was a shrill female voice and Sean's weak, placating voice. Curtains were drawn around the bed, and they were inside. They didn't notice me entering. I silently started recording their conversation on my phone, expressionless. After capturing enough of their talk, I left the room before they noticed me. I could feel intense emotions boiling inside me. Anger towards Sean, disappointment, resignation, and above all, anger at myself. For not realizing sooner. But it wasn't over yet. I needed to be meticulous in my plan. To completely bring down that man. A week flew by. I made up my mind to confront Sean. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw me suddenly appear. I ignored him and closed the curtains around the bed.
Rachel, what have you been doing? I called and texted you so many times. I needed you for a bunch of things. Why were you ignoring me? I'm injured and still stuck in this hospital. You need to take care of me. My wife should be doing better than this. Did you bring the stuff I asked for? I've been so bored this past week. Oh, and the doctor and police want to check some things about my injuries and the accident. Oh, by the way, a nurse told me you already knew about the girl I was in the accident with.
Hey Sean. I cut him off calmly. I want a divorce. I tossed the divorce papers onto his bed. Huh? He was speechless. He clearly hadn't seen this coming at all. He looked back and forth between me and the divorce papers in utter disbelief. I took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. Sean, you've been cheating, haven't you? I said it outright, and his face drained of color. Blood drained from his face, leaving him pale as a sheet.
What? What are you talking about? I wouldn't cheat. I have you and Lily.
Oh, really? Then what's this? I laid out the evidence of his infidelity.
What is this?
His face was a picture of shock. As I looked at him, I remembered the day I received the call that Sean and Lily had been rushed to the emergency room. That day, I was shocked when I faced the girl in the ICU. Connected to numerous machines, sleeping there, she was clearly not my daughter, Lily. Yet, there was something familiar about her. I told the doctors and nurses that she wasn't my daughter, as Lily was safe at my in-laws' house and I was in contact with her. They looked confused. So, who was this girl? I had a hunch and started searching through my phone's contacts. I had registered the class contact list, so she should be there. Ah, found it. Hello, is this the cell phone of Hannah Kirby's mother? My name is Rachel Sander. I'm the mother of Lily Sander, who's in the same class as Hannah. A face I remembered seeing somewhere. Digging through my memory, I realized it was a face I had seen at my daughter's school event. Hannah's mother, Anna Kirby, was frantic on the other end of the phone. Even over the phone, her voice was almost deafening. I informed her about Hannah's accident and the hospital she was taken to, then hung up. I immediately left the hospital and headed to my in-laws' house where Lily was. My mind was still in turmoil. But I was certain something was happening behind my back. I hurried to my in-laws' house. When I arrived, Lily greeted me happily, and my in-laws looked surprised.
Mom! You're late. I've been waiting forever. Lily! Lily!
What's wrong, Mom? She was just as I left her in the morning, perfectly fine. I hugged her tightly, relieved. Thank goodness, my daughter was here. Lily, looking puzzled, asked if I was tired from work as she patted my head. Feeling the warmth of her hand, I was reassured she was alive. Lily, weren't you supposed to go on a drive with Dad? Why are you here at Grandma and Grandpa's? Her face clouded over. Well, I started feeling sick on the way and asked Dad to drop me off. She said, scratching her cheek. But I could tell immediately it was a lie. As I was wondering what this all meant, my mother-in-law suggested, let's not talk at the entrance, come inside, Rachel. She led me to the living room. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were wearing solemn expressions. I had a bad feeling. But I knew I couldn't look away or cover my ears. My mother-in-law spoke first. Just to confirm, do you know that every time Sean takes Lily out, he drops her off here midway and picks her up later to go home? No. I answered, confused, and my in-laws looked as if they had expected as much. What does this mean? Sean and Lily weren't really going out together? But why? Why would he pretend to go out, leaving Lily behind? It's hard to say, but I think Sean might be having an affair. What? My husband saw Sean meeting with an unknown woman. He also saw him playing with a girl about Lily's age. I looked at my father-in-law in disbelief, and he nodded solemnly. I thought I was mistaken at first. But after Sean left Lily with us, I followed him and saw him pick up the same woman and her child in his car. I can't believe it. We were told by Sean that he was bringing Lily here because she was insistent on seeing her grandparents. And when we asked Lily, she said Sean told her to keep it a secret from you, Rachel. To pretend you all spent the day together. He threatened to abandon her if she broke the promise. I felt dizzy. So, Sean was using our daughter to cover up his affair? I couldn't believe it. What had I been seeing all these years? I thought we were a normal, happy family. Was I the only one who thought so? Was Sean mocking me all along, enjoying his affairs, while Lily lived in fear of his unpredictable behavior? Was I the only one oblivious to all this? Thinking about the girl involved in the accident, it was likely that she was Sean's mistress's child. Confusion, anger, despair, my head was spinning with these emotions. My in-laws reassured me, saying they were on my side and I could talk to them any time. I thanked them and left with Lily. In the car on the way home, I made a quiet resolution. I had been too absorbed in my work and hadn't paid enough attention to my family. It was up to me to protect Lily. I was determined to expose Sean's secrets and make him face the consequences. Back home, after dinner, and after Lily had gone to bed, I searched Sean's room. And there it was, evidence of his affair. In his computer, under a folder named Family Memories, were photos of his mistress, pictures of them in bed, and photos of them with her child, looking like a family. I knew the mistress. It was the woman I called today. It was Anna Kirby, the mother of Lily's classmate, Hannah. Sean had been happily playing with his mistress's daughter, threatening our own to keep her quiet. And now, they were involved in an accident. It made me sick. I remembered Sean always disliked being photographed, claiming he wasn't photogenic. We hardly had any family photos, yet here he was with his mistress, posing happily. Was he different with her? Could it be that the allowance Sean frequently begged me for wasn't for drinks with friends, but for his affair? A simmering anger began to boil within me. I wouldn't let this man get away with this. I printed all the photos from the computer. The next day, after hearing Sean's incoherent ramblings in his hospital room, I stopped by the police station to collect his belongings recovered after the accident. Luckily, his cell phone was only slightly cracked and turned on without issue. I immediately opened his messaging app and checked his conversations with his mistress. The exchange was filled with nauseating heart stamps. I took screenshots and printed them out. Then, the following day, I recorded a conversation between Sean and Anna in the hospital room.
Hey, what's going on? I thought you and Hannah were just going for a drive, and then I hear about an accident with severe injuries. Do you know how hard it was to deceive my husband about this? Anna, calm down. It's okay, my wife doesn't suspect a thing. Is that supposed to comfort me? That your clueless wife hasn't figured it out? I'm not in the clear here. My husband is suspicious, and Hannah, she's just a girl, she's hurt. If there are scars, you're taking responsibility for life. What are you talking about? Can't you worry about me a little? I almost died in that accident. Don't worry about Hannah, she's young and will recover quickly. Quicker than an old man like me. Haha. Don't you laugh. Now that it's come to this, we're in this together, right? We have to make sure our affair stays hidden.
I wanted to scream at them but held back. Their arguing solidified my resolve: divorce. I couldn't continue a normal life with Sean after all this. Today, armed with all the evidence, printed photos, screenshots of messages, and the recorded conversation, I confronted him. I couldn't continue a normal life with Sean after all this. Today, armed with all the evidence, printed photos, screenshots of messages, and the recorded conversation, I confronted him. Today, armed with all the evidence, printed photos, screenshots of messages, and the recorded conversation, I confronted him. Now, if you say you haven't had an affair, explain all of this. Sean bit his lip in frustration. I continued calmly.
You've always been selfish, Sean. Not caring about Hannah or even her own daughter, Lily. Do you understand that?
What do you mean?
I've been overwhelmed with my own problems. Look at these injuries. I don't have the luxury to worry about others. Hannah once told Lily, laughing, Lily's dad is so into my mom and me. Lily and her mom get no attention at all.
What? Children are much more observant and understanding than adults realize. Hannah told Lily that, and still, Lily has been living in fear and enduring all this because of you. Do you even understand how she feels?
What? Suddenly playing the mother card? If you're going to say that, I have plenty of complaints too. You're always busy with work, leaving Lily to me. We have no time as a couple. Just because you earn more, what does that mean? Ultimately, you're just my ATM. You didn't even notice the affair until now. Don't act all high and mighty. It's all your fault. If you had fulfilled your role as my wife properly, I wouldn't have had to have an affair. You should take all the responsibility.
So this was Sean's true nature. I watched him rant coolly. Then the curtain behind me was pulled back. In came my red-faced in-laws, Anna and her husband. And a lawyer. Huh? Sean's eyes widened in shock as everyone I had gathered suddenly filled the room. Entering silently, they had been listening to our conversation and now surrounded his hospital bed.
This foolish son of mine.
My father-in-law, red-faced with anger, yelled as if he was about to grab Sean.
Ah!
Sean let out a strange sound.
Enough with your disrespect towards Rachel. Who do you think you are? Not only having an affair, but also involving someone else's daughter and causing her injury. Shame on you, shame.
Seriously. I never thought you could be this stupid. Where did we go wrong in raising you? This is embarrassing. My mother-in-law held her head in her hands, overwhelmed by father-in-law's fury. Anna's husband, who had been silently observing Sean, Anna has shrunk back, looking agitated, while the lawyer stood confidently. All these people were here at my call. At this moment, Sean had not a single ally in the room. Nor did Anna. For them, this must have felt like a public execution. I decided to proceed with the discussion.
Oh yes, about the accident you both were involved in. It seems you have some responsibility, don't you, Sean?
What are you talking about? The dashcam footage shows you were driving distracted. The lawyer took over the explanation, revealing that the multi-car accident was largely exacerbated by Sean's distracted driving. Though there were no fatalities, it appeared Sean would be facing a hefty compensation claim.
What? No! I don't have that kind of money or leeway.
Did you think such whining would be accepted? Realistically, Sean, who always asked me for money, lacked the means to pay. But I was determined to make him pay. By any means necessary, following legal proceedings. And from me, I would like to claim damages for the affair and for what happened to Hannah, said Anna's husband, glaring at Sean. Then he looked down at the scattered evidence of the affair on the bed. I plan to file for divorce from Anna and sue her for damages. The rest is up to you two.
No! No way! Why are you saying that? I'm not getting a divorce. If we divorce, it would be pitiful for Hannah.
If you think it's pitiful, then why did you carelessly leave Hannah with your lover, leading to this? I should have acted sooner. Then Hannah wouldn't have suffered like this, and she wouldn't have been teased by her friends for your affair. You're a disgrace as a mother. Reflect on your actions for once. Anna's husband scolded her sharply, and she bowed her head in silence.
Oh, no!
Sean groaned alone. Met only with stern, cold stares. Utterly isolated. I presented the divorce papers again.
You'll sign these, won't you?
As I asked, Sean bit his lip again.
Sign it now.
Urged by my father-in-law, Sean weakly gripped the pen and slowly signed the divorce papers.
I'm going to make sure you pay a substantial amount in alimony, just so you're prepared.
Sean's face, as he looked up, was the very picture of despair. Ah, this is finally the end. And so, Sean and I got divorced. My ex-husband, having recovered from his injuries, was burdened with a huge amount of compensation and alimony. The story of his accident and affair had spread throughout his workplace. However, unable to quit due to his financial obligations, he continues to work in a state of constant discomfort. Hannah ended up in the custody of her father and still remains hospitalized with serious aftereffects from the accident. Every time my ex-husband visits her, he is berated by her father and relatives, being told not to come again and that his only involvement should be through alimony payments. I don't know where Anna is now, but I heard through the lawyer that she, too, is working tirelessly from morning to night to pay off her alimony. It's all a result of their own doing. As for me, I moved to a new house with my daughter. She had to change schools, but she seems to be doing surprisingly well. Perhaps it's because she's been freed from her father's intimidation. My former in-laws, having cut ties with their son, continue to care for us and offer help. I've reduced my workload to spend more time with my daughter.
From now on, I've vowed to myself and to her to prioritize her happiness above all else.